who else could better be here than you, Yonca? I met you some months ago in London at the Google offices. We talked for a while, and of course I said you have to come to DLDwomen. Yonca, what are you doing?
I'll take it from there, Steffi.
Okay.
Thank you, Steffi. I came here to talk about technology for good, but I'm also a mother of 2 little girls, and it's very hard to follow such a session and talk about technology for good and work at Google and not think of what can I do about it. So I can definitely make it more heard. And if Somali or anyone that works with her is still here, I first want to say, you know, stay strong, and also if there's anything that we could do, I'd love to be able to help. So I am here to talk about technology for good at Google. It's not a corporate social responsibility talk, and I'll explain that later. It's really about our values at Google, which are very strongly held, and how they manifest themselves in some weird and wonderful ways. So one of our values is something you might have heard about, which is don't be evil. It was written in our founder's letter before the IPO. And in the early days, that meant don't put banner ads, you know, can you imagine display ads on the Google search pages? Or don't, prioritize advertising or search results based on money. Basically, don't do bad things for money. Later on, I think, as we grew as a company, by the way, the decision to get out of China was a more recent example of that. And later on, though, as we grew and evolved as a company, we have 1 billion users now, we have so many products, and I've been in the company for 5 years. Don't do evil is not enough on our own when one day you realize, I've been in this company 4 years, this was about a year ago, and Ricky, can you please stand up in the audience? She also works with me on this project at Google. When Ricky and my boss, who is also a woman, by the way, she's the CMO of Google, and Ricky runs emerging markets at Google. We just said, you know, we're sitting on an immense technological platform where we have all these users, all these products. You know, we have a responsibility to use this for greater good. And how could we do that? So another value at Google that we very much cherish and live is ideas can come from anywhere. So basically, Lorraine, my manager, after like a brief discussion, sent this email to the whole of marketing saying, if you have any ideas for good that will use our technology, but they have to be really big ideas and they have to scale across many countries, you know, just email me back. And she had hundreds of emails. It was just not what she expected. In fact, some people had forwarded the email outside the marketing department. So that's how the initiative Technology for Good, it was just an idea and an email. And then when all these ideas came, we thought we have to group these somehow in 4 areas, and that's what I'll talk about right now. Basically, we group them under economic impact, social impact, cultural impact, and freedom of expression. So I'll start with economical impact, and I think that's where my first slide comes. Even if it doesn't come, I'll keep talking. Basically, one of the less well-known aspects of Google by users is that there are millions of advertisers, large and very small, that advertise on Google, and Google has a big impact on economies. Not just Google, the internet has a big impact on economies around the world. So we did a study with BCG and in some countries with McKinsey that measured the impact of digitization on economies. And of course, we found a range. For example, Spain, Italy are 2 to 3% of their GDP comes from the internet. And in countries like the UK, it's 7, and it's all going in one direction. It's growing. And Google plays a big part of that. So how do we do that? Not in the commercial way where we do have an advertising product that you pay, you use, you know, not in a commercial way. How do we do that for the greater good? Then is the next slide. A guy in my team in Poland, Janusz, he said, I've been speaking to the Polish government. They really want to digitize the economy, and they would like to bring much more small businesses online. You know, small businesses don't know how to have a website, domain name, web hosting, you know, who do they go to? They're usually very few number of people. So he basically developed this project in partnership with the government, and with these partners. One partner provides free web hosting, the other one a domain registration, the other one maybe had some hand-holding, the other a website design, and we give free advertising on Google worth, let's say, $100. So this, which we called Internet Revolution in Poland, became a huge project that is now in 28 countries, and we aim to bring 1 million businesses around the world online with Google. So this is one impact area I wanted to talk about. The second area of impact is social impact. Now again, this is not a corporate social responsibility effort. We are not going to have, you know, like one theme that we do lots of things around. These are ideas that people in my team in different countries have come up with because it really meant something for them and in their country for their people. We do have .org. I don't know if Megan is here today. She runs and she's speaking later on. We do have, you know, a more of a part of Google that deals with social issues. But this is, again, I'm going to talk about marketing ideas. So the first one is, I think it's Carla Bruni. I just don't, let's see. Actually, I'm okay. So Carla Bruni and the Born HIV Free campaign. Basically, someone in my team in France, Alexi, saw an opportunity that we could make her issues much wider heard in France and around the world if we did something on YouTube. And I was thinking, could we do something on YouTube? And I guess that doesn't apply to Cambodia, so I'm going back to that. We have to do something there with Somali. But this is about you can stop mother-to-child transmission of HIV. This is not a very high-tech thing. It can be done. It's stoppable, and her foundation aims to end mother-to-child transmission of HIV by 2015. I think Carla Bruni's brother was lost to AIDS, so I think it's quite a personal thing for her as well. But again, one idea that came out of my team in France, and we've worked a lot with her and, of course, raised a lot of awareness of her issue. Second idea is, whoops, another idea around social impact is Yad Vashem. This is the Holocaust Museum in Israel that basically we digitized and brought online. But that's just a part of it. So there were millions of photographs and memorabilia archives from the Holocaust Museum that were just sitting there in our archives. They were not searchable, so we made them searchable. When there were writings, you know, behind the photographs, we put that text online, so you could search for the text, you could search for a photo, and also there's a community sourcing element where if people wanted to add their photos, they can. And there's another very personal, touching story here, where one of our Googlers in Israel, who leads the policy team, he had a very personal story. There was a photograph of his grandfather that meant a lot to him that had been lost in the years. His grandfather was in a camp and he'd escaped from it. He'd spent a year in the forests hiding, and one day he was discovered by Russian soldiers and he was mistaken for a German soldier. And actually what he'd done was, when he'd left the camp, he'd vowed to have a picture of himself taken so that he would never forget the 16 kilos he'd lost and all the, you know, gray hair and spots on his clothes. You know, he wanted to sort of capture that moment. And luckily he had, and he'd sewn it into his jacket's pocket. And so when the Russian soldiers found him and mistook him for a German soldier in the forest, he just said, no, you know, I'm actually not, I'm Jewish, you know, and don't arrest me. And it really, literally saved his life. And this photograph had been lost in all the years. And so when the digitization happened by Israeli engineering team, he actually went, searched for his grandfather, found it, and it just meant the world to him. And there's countless stories. Every day we come up with stories like this. And so digitization of not just, obviously, archives of Holocaust Museum, but science museums, art, is a big thing that we do at Google, and I'll come to that later. The next slide is actually about that. So in promoting culture, we try to provide, again, digitize and provide access to culture. Now, ideas can come from anywhere, I'd said. So this girl, Clara, in the Spanish team, I didn't even know that she was doing this, to be honest. She just, in the Spanish marketing team, in my team, she just had been really tired of taking all her friends to Prado every time they visited Madrid. So she said, you know what? There's these Street View engineers. I'm going to talk to them. You know, we're going to use Street View technology indoors, and we're going to make a super ultra high resolution imagery of a few of the masterpieces so you can go really, really zoom into them, much closer than you could ever with a naked eye in the museum with a space that you're not allowed to, you know. And then we're going to do Street View so that actually from your laptop you can tour the museum yourself. And Prado really went along with this because museums are concerned that if they do this, you know, people will not come, and actually it's the opposite. Millions of more people were able to access the Prado Museum now, and they saw a 15 to 30% more footfall they call it footfall, you know, increase in footfall or visiting into their museum. And poor Clara, she still has to take her friends to the Prado because, you know, it's her fault. She shouldn't have created so much interest around it. But what's amazing is that, again, this idea from this one junior person then has now been scaled to 17 of the world's top museums, from the Uffizi to Hermitage to the Met to MoMA and Tate, and basically it's growing. We've launched 17 museums in February, and it's growing, and we want to bring more museums. And actually, how can we build a platform so that we don't have to do it, but people can upload their art and make it accessible to everyone in a user interface that Google can design and they couldn't, and we could just help everybody by opening up that platform to everybody. So that was Clara's story. This is Tim, not in my team, can't take the credit for that, but another very junior guy just out of college. And when we do this brainstorming, you know, marketing brainstorming, he goes, I just love classical music, and I just hate the way that it's going down in audiences, and it's not embracing the 21st century and technology. And I think what we should do is commission a piece of music online, ask people from around the world to audition for it. And then I'm thinking we create this orchestra of like 100 people, and we put the world's best conductor to conduct them. I'm thinking Carnegie Hall. And that's basically what happened. And at Carnegie Hall, this was not this year, last year, there was such a concert of people who had never before met and played together. They had certainly not played together for MTT, who's a world-renowned conductor, and they'd never even dreamed about playing at Carnegie Hall. And this one guy's idea became a global project. And this last year was Carnegie Hall, and this year it was the Sydney Opera House. And again, ideas can come from anywhere, and we have a duty to use our technology for big ideas and ideas we're also passionate about. So right now, I'm going to go a little off-piste, because I meant to talk about some interesting political things that we're doing in my last area, which is freedom of expression. But listening to the stories, I thought I have to share with you something a bit more personal that one of them actually, the last one, I haven't really spoken about publicly because it was quite a personal experience. But I can't stand here, talk to you about how Google has values, and not tell you this last story where I think values are easier to have when you're growing and you're successful and happy. But really, when you're put to the test and when you're challenged, what happens to those values? Do they manifest themselves? And I really personally and very intensely live that with Google. And that'll be my second and last example. And the first one, again, I hadn't planned to talk about this, but I did just fly in here from Dublin. And in the spirit of spontaneity and this warmth that I've seen at this conference, I want to share those two with you and not the other two, I think more boring ones in a way. So the first idea is something actually that was created by Google Ideas. We have a think/do tank at Google that was newly formed. Again, I don't know if Megan's here. She's very heavily involved. And I was an executive sponsor of that project, and it was a conference in Dublin, basically bringing former neo-Nazis, former fundamentalists, basically former extremists, but former is a common theme here, and victims of 9/11 or the mother of the 21st hijacker from the 9/11 tragedy, from the July London bombings. Basically, they all took their turns on stage. And then we had breakouts, which is what I'd like to tell you about. Why would Google do such a thing? First of all, we didn't do this on our own. We did it in relationship with the Council of Foreign Relations, and Tribeca Film actually is going to do a movie documentary out of it. But the Google idea, the think and do tank, they thought that there is a common theme here where all these people are actually not surrendering to extremism because of ideological reasons, but because they were all, at some point in their times, disillusioned youth who were exploited for really, really bad things. And again, another thing that unites them more than divides them, that was a common theme, what unites us is much more than what divides us, was that they've all left that world, and to be honest, they've started their little NGOs, and there was this one guy from an LA gang. By the way, these were like really, there were lots of guys in this conference, and they were all really big and scary. And he was saying, I have a target to unrecruit 91 people from the gang I was in. And I was like, why 91? He says, because that's how many people I recruited into this gang. And I'm like, you've got to do 10 times more than that, you know. And we're working with them, obviously. And then in the breakouts, there was a breakout, and I was leading a breakout about, well, what do we do? What do we do now that we all, you know, have this idea that we're all united, and we want to get together, join forces? Because everybody, the one guy in Colombia, the other in the favelas in Brazil, the other in Chicago against skinheads, you know, everybody's got these fragmented efforts. How can we unite to really have a much bigger impact? So at some point, there was a guy to my left, Alan, who couldn't speak English, and we had a simultaneous translator, but we were like coming up with, and we have to do, he was a former arms dealer and drug trafficker, and we were like, we have to do day centers, and we all believe that the antidote is in the poison, and the most credible people to teach youth that this is really bad, and they'll really have a horrible life if they go that direction, is not their teachers who they don't seem to listen to, or their parents, especially the mothers I heard so many times try to warn these children. It's actually people who've been there, done that, and just saying, don't go there. So in that spirit, we had this day center idea, and we were like, yes, you know. And there was this former skinhead with this lady from the Middle East who's not a former, she's just an NGO with this good cause. And they were like high-fiving about this other idea that they had, that celebrities, you know, should really reinforce this image of peace and love is cool, and it's not just about anger and hate and all that. So it was a very unique experience, I thought, only at Google, that I had to share with you. And my last example, my personal one, is relates to a guy in my team called Wael Gonim. Does anyone know Wael's story? I see some nodding. Yes, of course, you do. So Wael, 3-4 years ago, you know, I had hired him to do marketing for the Middle East. Sort of a guy in my team, you know, we have a big marketing team. You know, he's a guy in the big marketing team in the Middle East. And he told me, he's Egyptian, but he had moved to Dubai recently. He said, I'm taking a few days holiday for personal reasons to go to Egypt. Cool, okay, signed the form. And then on Sunday, his wife called me. She said, he's disappeared. I haven't heard from him. He's disappeared. And then began this incredible 12 days of a period where basically he disappeared. And I turned to people at Google, what do we do? Well, Egypt is in a chaos right now, but you know, we can tell our friends in government, we can use private security firms to go after him. So, okay, everything's great. That's what I wanted to hear, great. Because, you know, I hadn't been prepared for such a thing in my life, and I wasn't sure what any company, Google or whatever, would do. So great, okay, they're doing something for him. We've got private people on the ground looking for him, visiting hospitals, prisons. And then somebody said, hey, here's the last picture taken of Wael in case it helps you guys locate him. So there's Wael in Tahrir Square with a helmet, a bright green bandana, you know, very Islamic green, going like this. And there's like all the smoke behind him and everything. And his last Facebook status update was something really against Mubarak, and we're all prepared to die. I just thought, oh my God, you know, these people don't know Wael like I do. You know, in California, the ones who make the decisions, I have to go to them. Can I still use these expensive private investigation firms to look for him? And he looks like an Islamic, you know, fundamentalist terrorist or something. And then luckily, you know, they knew me, or they just, again, had faith in Google employees, and then we just kept looking for him just as aggressively. Actually, we started putting advertising on Google. You know, if someone typed in missing Wael, you know, ads would come up, call this number. And all the same time, the internet is shut down in Google, at one point in Egypt, so we launched Speak to Tweet, which is something where you speak into a mobile phone and it tweets. So we could, you know, let the Egyptian voices heard. And again, that's kind of endangering Wael, but what do? You know, we really should do this, you know? And we thought Wael would approve, so we went on with that. And then we're looking for him, I'm talking to his wife twice a day, every day, still no news, which is, you know, not very easy to say to a wife, but she was very cool about it, I must say. And something else happens. At this point, the Mubarak government is still in power, and they said they will leave in September, and in the meantime, they said they will sit down to talks with the youth movement so that they could begin some reforms. And the girl who leads the youth movement said on an Al Jazeera interview, I think, we will not sit down to talk with President Mubarak and his people unless they release our symbolic leader, Wael Ghonim. Oh my God, you know, at this point I had to go to the global head of corporate communications and Rachel, and I'm like, Rachel, you know, it kind of looks like Google is bringing down the Egyptian government. And, you know, and what do we do? And she's like, I need to talk to Sergey. And I said, Rachel, you know, well, I used all the emotional trickery that I could, and she didn't need it, really. She'd already called all her friends in British government who have people, you know, she'd already been doing so much, but that was really, when I talk about, you know, values being put to the test, you know, we have relationships with the Egyptian government. They are a government. By the way, we have people in the Egyptian office who might be at risk because, you know, some people are very pro-government still in Egypt. And so basically, when the message came, like, look for him aggressively, find him, you know, I'm with you all the way. And then basically we did find him because at some point everybody knew we were looking for him. His wife said to me, is he like the CEO of Google or something, you know? And actually there was a point when I said to Rachel, if this was Eric Schmidt, what would you do? Because, you know, everybody at Google is equally as valuable and, you know, not that she needed it, to be honest. So, and then Wael became a hero, and now he's, you know, seen as the person who led the revolution because he started the movement that led to the Tahrir Square demonstrations, and he is Time 100, you know, he sends me Time 100 most influential people of the year, and, you know, JF Kennedy Prize of this, and David Cameron wants to see him, can you please tell him, Yonca? I'm like, okay. So that's where he is, and he's a hero, and that's the story I think some of us know, but I think really he's now left Google, and he's really pursuing his dream, which is to use Google or all technology to help. He hasn't left Google, he's on a leave of absence, because his wife was like, I'll kill you if you leave Google. And he, you know, loves Google, but he couldn't pursue what he quite politically wants to pursue while being employed. So he's on a leave of absence, and he's now committed his life to, for the foreseeable future, to using technology and pursue that dream, his value. So I think what better way to end than, you know, your values being put to the test and pursuing that using technology for good. And thank you for listening to me. Really.
I'm just going to walk up. I don't know whether Steffi was supposed to be here. That was sort of the plan, but it doesn't matter. I can introduce myself as well. I'm Gabi Zedlmayer, representing HP here, and I think it's a really fantastic conference. I've learned a lot yesterday, more on the basic front. There is something I discovered yesterday, and I applied it today. Anybody recognize? Yellow is the new pink. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. What I really want to do is, and I need the advancer. Yonca, do you still have it, or did you give it to me? This, Yonca? Oh, here it is. Great. What I really want to talk about is a concept that we call shared value. And that's really about competitiveness. And that's how we look also at HP at making social investments, because we want to tie it right into our business strategy. As we make social investments and as we use social innovation, we do it to create social impact and also to create economic impact. And I think that's very, very important if we want to solve some of these problems that we all heard about today and yesterday, which are really, really big. And I think sometimes we're somewhat overwhelmed with what there is to do. But I think if we all believe in this concept, and Michael Porter calls it the new capitalism, then I think we stand a real chance. I mean, if you think about it, I come from HP. We're the largest IT company in the world. We have 320,000 people. Now, if we bring more of our technology and more of our people to address social causes, and if all other companies the same size do that, I really do think we have a chance. And that doesn't only pertain to the company, it's also the individual that can make a big difference here. I've just chosen a couple of facts. This list, as you know, is totally endless, but there is absolutely no need for 1 million people to die of malaria every year. Or think about the primary education for the kids. Years ago, we've already said we can't put them into school and it's got to be $7 billion. That's much less than Europeans spend on ice cream and Americans spend that in a quarter on dog food, and we still can't do it. And you don't have to go to Africa and you don't have to go to India. You can just look into your own backyard. Poverty in Germany. There are lots of youth that can't find a job. If you take a look at the unemployment rates, not only here but everywhere, they're humongous. And then you ask yourself, when you go and you study with your kids, wouldn't there have been an opportunity to reach out to other kids as well? To just say, come on, let's make a little study group out of that. Just use your skills, do things differently. And if this is one thing this conference can do, then it's, let's just get out of the chairs and do something different. And if it's only one thing that we do differently. So I got this job which I call social innovation. I don't call it social investment because this is not what it's about. It's about innovation, about 14 months ago at HP. And what I said at the time is I got to take a step back and take a look at what we're doing in the social space. And we had really done what the name said, social investments. We just worked a little bit in education, worked with universities, and we did make some impact. But we didn't really tackle the real issues. And what we also didn't do, we hadn't pegged it to our company strategy. I mean, we want to grow in emerging markets. We want to grow in the health sector. The health sector is the last frontier of IT. And I use this example because it illustrates it really well. You travel the world. You go to Ouagadougou, and you put in your ATM card, and you expect cash, and you will get cash. And you move from Munich to Eching, which is a place next door, and you change your doctor, so you go to the doctor, and you need to get photocopies of your records because it cannot be done digitally. It's ridiculous. It's a space where IT can transform an entire industry. It's a growth market for Hewlett-Packard. So why not also invest socially into that space? And what we also said at the time, we want to really do it at the intersection of creating shareholder value and creating social value. And so clearly we want to create social impact. Our founder, 70 years ago, David Packard, I just can't believe 70 years ago, he stepped back and said, let's think about why we even exist. It's not just about maximizing profits, that's important, but it's to create value for the community. He didn't say to write a check, he said it's to create value for the community. And this is not just recent because of all of the risk mitigation, this is 70 years ago. And that's one piece that makes me extremely proud to work for this company because these guys, Dave Packard and Bill Hewlett, were just such role models for all of us. It's about reputation. 25% of HP's reputation around the world depends on the work we do in the social space, and that's excluding environment. So people look to us, our customers look to us, what do we do to address education issues, the digital divide, entrepreneurship, unemployment? 25%. So we can really do a lot for our reputation. And we can help the company grow. And all the examples that I'm going to show you will show you how this actually helps the bottom line of HP while we do good work and really save lives every day. And I think one of the important things is also employee engagement. Today, when you hire young people, they interview you. It's not like you ask them a question, they ask you about the values and what you stand for. And many of them take less of a salary to go to a company whose values they believe in. I find that really amazing, and it's great. So if we want to get the best talent and retain the best talent, we better get engaged in the space and take all of our employees with us. So as we stepped back and said, so what should the strategy be? We said the best impact we can make really around health, around education, entrepreneurship, and volunteering. And this is really where the whole breadth of our portfolio can come to play. And I'm just going to give you a few examples of what it is that we actually do. So let's take the health space. Just, I think 3 weeks ago, we announced a program where we had given these devices to just 20 health workers in Botswana. And we also gave them space in the private cloud where they could do data analysis. These health workers have gone out into the countryside and have mapped malaria outbreaks. So everywhere they saw something, they uploaded data with a GPS tagging as well. So within instances, we were able to have a whole surveillance map of malaria outbreaks in Botswana. The same minute this information gets uploaded to the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health comes with a 10-point plan in order to retain this and make sure there is no malaria outbreak. People get treated. It's very simple. And it's a cloud mobility solution based on WebOS. So what do we get out of it? First of all, great. You know, we got New York Times wrote about this. Fantastic. And we have all of these ingenious young guys out of Botswana. It's a small NGO called PING, Positive Innovation for the Next Generation. They write applications for us, and they write such useful and fantastic applications. We can take them to other countries, and just today we got notification that this is now applied in Kenya as well. So it goes from one country to another, and soon we'll be able to have this type of a service everywhere. The other thing is what we've done in Kenya. Always, before we go in, we always try to sort of link up with those that know the best what needs to get done. So in Kenya, we linked up with the Clinton Health Access Initiative. And they said one of the biggest issues in Africa is that when kids get born, their blood gets taken, and then everything is manual. Manual recording into the envelope, off to the national lab. It gets analyzed, it gets re-recorded, transmitted like 5 times from one sheet to another, back into an envelope. By the time the information gets back, 4 months will have passed. That's 3 months too late for the baby to have a chance to even be 2 years old. It has to be back in the first 30 days. So we've put data centers into Kenya. And sometimes, you know, it's not so easy to really get into the rural areas. So one thing we've done also is we've worked with our imaging and printing team on ingenious solutions that help us get the results back in time. And I can just show you real quickly how this is going to work. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to ask my colleague, Barbara, who's sitting in the first row here, to just place a call with a colleague who's on standby in Kenya. And here's how it works. You know, results are done, and you either transmit them via the data center from one data center to another, or you send it via the cloud to a printer directly. And why is that important in Kenya as well is because these mothers need to see the results in writing. They want to take a sheet home. It's very important to get this physical touch. So we said to our team, first of all, let's work on these e-print solutions where the cloud and the internet is there. But what if there is no internet? Because we know in many parts of Africa there is no internet. So we again went back to our team of imaging and printing and said, there is no internet everywhere, so what do we do with those rural areas? And what they did is they developed a GSM-based printer. So now it can be sent with a basic SMS, and 85% of people in Africa have access to a basic mobile, and just send it back for the mother to receive the information. Now, how is that benefiting us? I was in New York 10 days ago at a very high visibility conference to receive a prize for exactly that specific initiative. Got a lot of visibility. Again, getting written up, Mashable, Fast Company. Thanks. That's okay, Stevie. But I introduced myself, Stevie. Thank you. Thank you. But what's also very important is one of these data centers that we've installed in Kenya is now sitting in the Ministry of Health. Now talk about visibility and talk about demonstrating your capabilities. One of the issues that we have at HP is that we're very good in specific areas of our business. So people often know us for specific areas of our business. And what we want people to know is that we can really deliver the whole portfolio, that we can do anything from the WebOS-based Palm to the laptops to the touchpads. We can do printers, we can do server storage solutions, software, and we have 200,000 services people. Most people don't know. That's why I thought I'll mention it. And that's why we do these reference cases. So I'm building out with my team reference cases that now the Ministry of Health sees, and for the first time in 4 years have we been invited back from the Ministry of Health in Kenya to bid for bigger IT deals, which we weren't prone to before. And we have companies, the big pharmaceuticals and the big telcos who've come to us to say, we want that program and we want to take it someplace else. Let me just mention one more program real quickly, which is all about the counterfeiting of drugs. And again, just to illustrate an example, we have a lot of issues with the counterfeiting of our own products in the supply chain. So we've invested millions and millions of dollars into making sure that we have mass serialization of numbers and authentication and everything that really stops that from happening. So what we did is we applied the same sort of idea to medication. So now, and we're running that in Ghana and Nigeria, when a patient goes into a pharmacy, he or she most likely, 110 million out of 158 million people that are infected by malaria have a malaria problem. They take the medication, scratch off a code on a basic mobile, SMS it to a free number, and within 5 seconds, they will get an answer that says basically, you're right or you're wrong. So here is the results that we're getting from Kenya. So the guy in Kenya has just sent me from a PC via the cloud here some information that shows me how things look right now in terms of the health system on some of the projects that we're working. So it just shows that when we were not able to tackle certain issues before, the technology lets you scale. And so again, here these people who are sick and who now know whether their medication is good or not, that could be life-saving, because if you're really malaria infected and this is a placebo, you could die. But what if it's toxic? You could die just as well, over 700,000 people. So together with Pedigree, we did this solution. Why, again, is this important for the business? We have been invited by the US State Department to sit on a task force that works on anti-counterfeiting, talking about visibility in the government. And yet again, all of these additional customers, telcos, and pharmaceuticals want to work with us on bringing the same product someplace else. So you're really solving big issues in the world, and at the same time, what we're doing is really creating social impact. I also mentioned that we're working on education because I think that is absolutely critical. And there, I think we can learn so much, yet again, from the folks in the more emerging markets. And if you take a look at what's happening in India, or in some parts of Africa, and how ingenious, we heard it yesterday already, people already work with basic mobility. Now what we can learn from them is how the entire education system will be transformed, because they'll never have these brick and mortar universities the way we're used to. And so we're working with 51 of the largest and the best institutions around the world: Carnegie Mellon, the Maracas Institute in South Africa, Agastya Foundation in India, the Tsinghua Institute in China, around the world with 51 universities, to work on what do these new concepts need to look like for online learning, for STEM learning, to democratize education, to get it into the hands of everybody. And I think that also will make a humongous difference. And just yesterday we announced a partnership with my good friend Shai Reshef from the University of the People. It's a great concept. It's a fantastic concept. It's just a university where you study for free, and it's online. And it's professors from Harvard and from Columbia and New York University that teach for free. I think it's phenomenal. And so what we've said to him, send your students over. We'll start with internships. We'll have them work with us on these new concepts of the future in terms of science, technology, engineering, and math. And then, I hope that we're going to be able to hire these guys. So I think that's yet another one that I find really, really important. One more program that I wanted to mention, and that is entrepreneurship. The numbers are staggering, and I think you probably know them all. When you look at countries like even Germany, France, and the UK, youth unemployment is high, 20, 25, sometimes 30%. When you go into some of the more emerging markets, it could be 70, 80%. So these people come out of university and they can't find a job. It's so sad. So what we've said to them is, what we've said to ourselves basically is, there must be a way to make entrepreneurs out of them. What do they need to know? And we realized, we went into universities and worked with these graduates, they oftentimes have a very theoretical education. They know very well what they've studied, but they don't have the practical skills. So we put a curriculum of like 40 modules together that shows them how to use IT to do a marketing plan, how to use IT to do an accounting plan, how to use IT to run your website, your collaterals. And now we're gonna also have a module that lets them develop WebOS applications for their business. Again, it's very good for us as well. It's very good to get an understanding of what's important to these young folks. We work with millions of them around the world, and at the end of the day, we're tackling one of the huge issues that is a pain points for governments around the world, which is basically youth unemployment. So again, these were just a few examples that show that you can really operate at the intersection of creating shareholder value and creating social value. So now I'm put a little application together where I'm going to start reading your minds, because one of the things I've heard today and yesterday was, let's get out of our chairs, let's do something different. Let's not say this was a nice conference and we had a great time and we heard a lot of interesting things, but let's think, are we prepared to engage now? Are we prepared to volunteer? You've heard so many such encouraging talks and such great ideas of how we could get involved. How can we go back to our companies and make our companies change? We've heard the shades of gray yesterday. It's not black and white. Make this happen and help to be a change agent. Go back to your company and say, there are tons of things we could do, so let me help get this off the ground. There are things you can do as an individual very differently. So my application is just gonna show me now whether this is gonna work. And remember, it's not about the money, it's just your skills, your knowledge, your capacity that we need for capacity building. So we can take a look.
It's not about the money, money, money.
Concentrate,
We don't
please.
need your money, money, money. We just want to make the world dance. Forget about the price tag.
Folks in the center, thank you. Looks pretty good already. Folks on the right, concentrate, please. Okay. If you guys could do one more, just try to think whether you're going to get engaged. Concentrate, please. I'll try this application again. I knew there was more upside because of it. Just think about it. As I said, in your own neighborhoods, you don't have to go around the world. There's tons you can do to change. Help kids with their resumes. Help make sure kids stay in school. Be a mentor, be a coach, be an inspiration to these folks and help them. And I can see you guys think, like I would like for you to think, Mel, you're gonna write a song for me. We're gonna go on the road and take this as a road show. I knew you guys would go even above the Call of Duty here. Fantastic, fantastic. So and this is really one of the most important things that I would like to leave people with, is that first of all, I think this idea of shared value applies to all of us. This has nothing to do with an IT company, it applies to all of us. And we should start thinking about how this makes a difference. New capitalism, you could be a change maker in the company where you work or for your own enterprise. And I think that's very, very important. And we often wonder how we get visibility and differentiate. This could be your space. Read up on it, Porter, FSG, lots of good writings about that. But again, go into your neighborhood, check out online sites. There's so many sites where you can just spend that hour and go and help somebody else to really, that they can really get to where they aspire to and be a change agent. And before I leave, I'd just like to show you a video. I've done that for our own employees because I want to inspire them to help. And we're showing that, and we've taken it around the world. And it's really to show like tidbits of what I've talked about, and to also show them that our CEO is behind this. Leo Apotheker is really full stream behind it. And with that, I'll just step aside here and ask you to play the video.
What about it to
Together, we are redefining corporate success beyond creating value for shareholders to also helping create a better world.
All right, let's change the world. Thanks a lot.